Ooh, yikes. Let's see if this actually is working. Let's see. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was kind of nervous to come back to YouTube, and I was I was especially nervous to come back this way to do something that is just super, I don't want to say out of pocket, but it's just like completely different to what I was trying to do before. But I realized that this is kind of, I don't want to say this is more the direction that I want to go, but this is definitely like a direction that I want the channel to go to. When first starting this channel, it was supposed to be about culture and everything that was happening in culture. And so now I really want to actually take the time to shift towards that. I have more time now with the coaching business that I built and all the things that I was trying to do this past year. I have the time to kind of dedicate more to live streams and doing more things like this. So this is a quick update. But today we're going to react and watch Dave Smith versus Seth Dillon. So this guy, Nick Fuentes, if you guys don't know who that is, he's been in the public eye really for about, I'd say like 6 years. He's been pretty popular, but more of like a taboo topic. To give you guys a little bit of backstory, for me, I've known about Nick Fuentes for a very long time because I've been into, let me tell you guys a story real quick before we actually get into this. At 16 years old or 17 years old, somewhere around there, that's when I was first introduced to Alex Jones. And the way that I was introduced to Alex Jones was I actually worked at the Brewer Stadium. It was called the Brewer Stadium before it went woke, and now it's Family Field, whatever. Who the fuck cares, right? Who cares what it's called now? But I worked there with a family member who ended up telling me about Alex Jones, and she wanted me to read this book called Behold a Pale Horse. And it was basically the how do I say, the thing that brought me into the conspiracy world of talking about things like Israel wasn't really the whole shtick back then. It was definitely a part of it, but it wasn't the thing. But what was talked about was kind of everything that's going on now, how they would like try to depopulate the earth, all these different things, right? But Nick Fuentes ended up being a topic of conversation around like 2018, I think. And so that's kind of the backstory of like what has gotten me into that. And now I'm not like a huge Nick Fuentes fan by any stretch of the imagination. However, he's somebody that has been on my radar because I've paid attention to a lot of these guys, like the Nick Fuentes. I think the next guy that is going to blow up like Nick Fuentes, he was one of the first people to ever get canceled, really. And he started a comedy. He had a show on Comedy Central, or not Comedy Central. I think it was the late night Cartoon Network thing. What was it called? Or what is his name? I forget his name, but I digress. So anyways, the people to pay attention to were Alex Jones, the dude who believed in lizard people. What's his name? David something. David. And then this third guy was the other guy that everybody was like, they were all like convinced that these were the three that were going to make it to the top of being the conspiracy guys. So anyway, Dave Smith and Seth Dillon just went on Piers Morgan to talk about Nick Fuentes, which I think is absolutely insane. And that's what we are going to react to today and talk about today, because I think that these conversations are so important to have nowadays. So let's talk about it.
In Venezuela. But with Nick Fuentes, particularly in this moment, what's so funny to me about it is it's like, guys, we ran the experiment of trying to censor Nick Fuentes. When I say we, I don't mean me. I never believed in that, and I had him on my podcast, back in the day too. But this guy is huge. It's just undeniable. He is huge. So at this point, you're just saying, would you like to not have a conversation about this? Look, I think there are lots of bad ideas all over the place. I always err on the side of sitting down and having a conversation is better than putting people in silence, trying to squash people. And look, Nick Fuentes was one of the most censored people in the country, and he's bigger than ever right now. So clearly that didn't work. And now we're having conversations.
See what?
Yeah.
Oh shoot.
And Seth, you know, if we simultaneously, you mentioned.
What tends to happen with these situations when you cancel somebody, the insane thing that happens, right? Well, not insane, but the thing that happens is that it's like when you tell a kid, no, don't listen to that. Don't watch that thing. Don't touch that thing. Don't go do this thing. Don't go smoke weed, right? Then the person or the kid is like, well, why shouldn't I? I want to experience it for myself now. They're more like inclined to go and do the thing. They want to go and do the thing now. And with Nick Fuentes, what happened was he got canceled years ago for talking about Juicebox, right? He got canceled years ago for that. And so then what happened was it kind of piqued people's interest about it. And now we're seeing this evolution of people talking about those people, right? And what their actual belief system is, and how they actually navigate the world and who is in charge of the world, right? And like, I'm not saying that I agree with a bunch of the stuff that Nick Fuentes says. I agree with a portion of it for sure, but there's some things that he goes a little bit too extreme on for me. But what happens is now you create this group of people that are like, well, if you're going to silence him, then he must be telling the truth. And if he's telling the truth, that's the person I'm going to follow, no matter how extreme or unextreme his views actually are. And that's actually why Nick Fuentes has blown up so much, because he got canceled. It sparked the Groyper interest. He has all these people that follow him. And now it's just a trickle down effect. Let's keep going.
Mentioned the Charlie Kirk thing, Seth. I wanted to ask you specifically about what Candace Owens has been doing around Charlie Kirk's murder.
By the way, what Candace Owens has been doing around Charlie Kirk's murder is absolutely crazy. Like, it's phenomenal work. However, I think that there's some stuff in her work that I do want to talk about that I just I cannot get down with whatsoever. I know a lot of people absolutely enjoy what Candace is doing right now, but there's just some stuff that I actually find it concerning because she considers herself Christian.
Many people think she is deliberately fueling pretty insane conspiracy theories linking Israel to the murder and so on. You've been dragged into some of this stuff, I know. What is your response to what Candace has been doing? Because she has a massive platform. She's getting these views amplified to a lot of people.
I think it's despicable in the same way that you think what Alex Jones was doing was despicable, for the same reason. You have people who are close friends and family members and associates, colleagues of Charlie Kirk, who loved him very dearly and are in the middle of mourning and grieving the loss of their friend, somebody that they love, and the spotlight of suspicion is being shined on them, and they're being accused of playing some kind of role in a cover-up. And you need to have, in order to leverage accusations like that, or even just insinuations, if you're not alleging it and you're just kind of like, here's the dots, you guys go connect them. You have to have some evidence. You have to have some reason for thinking that's the case, not just that you feel it. We know we don't know, but we know that we know, is something that she said. It's just, you can't go by your gut feelings. You can't go to what your dreams and what your dreams told you, and then go down this dark path.
Okay, so that is something that is super important to acknowledge with Candace Owens specifically. And I'm not going to get much further than this because this is kind of like the thing that I alluded to before, that I have a problem with Candace Owens about, is that in the Bible, it specifically warns against people who claim to be prophets. And something that she has leaned into a little bit is that she has prophetic dreams and that she's been told these things. I'm not going to say that that can't be true, but she's using it as a place of authority, which is a problem, and it is a problem in the faith.
And smear people who had nothing but love for Charlie, and would have, some of them I know very personally. Frank Turek was there standing by Charlie's side. He's been caught up in some of this stuff, and he's been in the crosshairs of Candace just recently. And he would have put himself between that bullet and Charlie if he could have. He loved Charlie like a son. And so, the grief is compounded by all of this. But just a step back real quick to the thing about, Fuentes on Tucker's show. I agree with Dave. Maybe you're surprised that we agree on so much, but I agree with Dave about Tucker having every right to talk to whoever he wants to. I also agree that when you censor people and you try to suppress their voices, in many cases, you only make them louder. I mean, look what happened with the Babylon Bee. I think we're more popular today than ever. We have a bigger following than ever because there were all these efforts to censor and suppress our voice. It backfired pretty spectacularly. Yeah. Drag the bad ideas out into the sunlight, engage with them, confront them. And this is my criticism of the interview with Nick Fuentes, is that there wasn't confrontation. Nick has said terrible things. Nick has said things like, you know, he wants to, when we get into power, all these atheists and these heretics and these perfidious Jews, they deserve the death penalty. They need to be executed. You know, he's glorified Hitler and said that he's really cool, really effing cool, actually.
Something that Nick Fuentes is, though, is, and I don't agree with any of that stuff. I can't even confirm or deny that he's actually directly said that stuff. What I will say is that if you've ever watched a Nick Fuentes stream, or a Nick Fuentes video, you understand that there's an underlying layer of comedy, or what he considers to be comedy. And the thing that has really gotten terrible with mainstream media sources like this and like Babylon Bee, and you pick your thing, right, is that they always take things as if they're not contextual. So I think we can all say that everyone has made a joke about Hitler. Everybody has made a joke about Mexicans. I'm Mexican. Everybody has made these jokes. The reason why these people don't like it is because it is a disenfranchised or what's it called? A group of people that are too vulnerable. And that's the reason why people don't like it. So the other thing is that Nick is a master marketer. He's a master of saying things and communicating in a way that is outlandish and people won't like it, and he knows that, and that's part of what fuels the fire. Again, that's the naughtiness of the stream of the videos of Nick Fuentes. So when you tell people don't listen to Nick Fuentes or let's cancel this guy, and he's saying these crazy things, you're like, well, fuck, dude, I want to hear more. What else does he have to say? So his viewership goes up. It's not even necessarily that people agree with him so much. It could be more so hate watching, whatever. The fact of the matter is that you are making him more popular, whether it be good or bad, because you're telling them no. He's saying these crazy things because he knows it's going to get a rise, and he gets more viewership. That's just how consumer media goes now. I listen to shit that I hate all the time, but also because I want to sparse out, like he's saying, the bad ideas.
You know, he's in the.
I got a cool stream deck, so now I can go boom, 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 boom.
Conversation with Tucker, he talked about his admiration for Stalin, who's responsible for tens of millions of deaths. And so, you know,
quick to interject on that. If you watch the Tucker interview when he talks about Stalin, I don't buy it. I don't believe that Nick was serious about that. I think that was one of those inflammatory things, yet again, that he said because he knows that it's going to get a rise out of people.
To gloss over all of that, to not challenge it and confront it. Tucker is so good. He was so good when he would have Democrats on, leftists, liberals that he disagreed with. He would mock them. He'd make them look foolish. He would ridicule and refute their ideas. And they stopped coming back because they were so embarrassed because he made them look so foolish. I'd like to see Tucker do that with bad ideas on the right. Why isn't he doing that? The only reasonable conclusion.
Tucker does that all the time with bad ideas on the right. That's a huge problem with this Seth Dillon guy. He's a cuck. But Tucker does that absolutely every single time. He had one of our senators, one of the conservative senators, on and talked to him about his bad ideas, or at least what he perceived to be his bad ideas.
That you can draw for not challenging Nick and more.
Tucker is actually probably one of the toughest guys for conservatives at this moment. He even criticized Donald Trump, the president, openly.
Substantive ways is that he doesn't disagree with him.
Right. I mean, I've had a few big toe-to-toes with Tucker, and he is, you know, he's normally comes at you like a firecracker. And what was noticeable about the Fuentes one was he had a very different tone with him. And, you know, like you say, Seth, you can take that as tacit agreement with what Fuentes is saying if you don't vigorously take it on and challenge it in the moment.
Yeah, well, Nick,
Dave,
what Nick is trying to do is become more mainstream. Nick is trying to become more mainstream.
Right.
He's moderating a little bit. He's
Right.
trying to distinguish himself from people who are further right than he is. And Tucker's helping him with that. Why? You want to ask that question. If we're asking questions, just asking questions, I want to know why Tucker is trying to mainstream Nick Fuentes instead of saying, look, you have radical, terrible ideas that have no part in the conservative movement. You're collectivist in your ideology. You're racist. You're bigoted in terrible ways. You've said horrible, disgusting things. I don't want you in my movement. Why isn't that Tucker's posture towards someone like Nick Fuentes?
That's such an interesting thing to say, because I think that something that everyone is craving so much right now is like real conversation, real dialect, real people who have real opinions, and then talking through the opinions and why they have them. And this guy is basically just calling for, Seth Dillon is basically just calling for, bring him in, tell him to shut the fuck up and move on. Joe Rogan says this thing often, that the best way to combat bad ideas is with better ideas. The only way that you can actually do that is by having civil discourse with somebody, bringing them in, having the conversation with them, and not making them feel like you're bombarding them. What Tucker actually did, if you watch it, was a really smooth way of questioning Nick Fuentes about his beliefs, why he believes them, and he did give him subtle pushback. He gave him pushback, enough pushback for you to actually understand where Nick Fuentes comes from. And I think that a lot of people don't actually know the story of Nick Fuentes and why he thinks the way that he thinks. And that's a really important piece of the story too, because if you don't know why somebody thinks something, the history from him working with Ben Shapiro and basically Ben pushing him under the rug and hating him and all these different, basically hating him and trying to break him down and all these different things, then you'll never really get to understand the psychology behind why Nick actually talks the way that he does, right? So now we're in this snippet culture or this clip culture where you just hear the nasty things that he says, because he says a bunch of nasty shit. I don't agree with like at least 60% of it, 40% of it, or sorry, 70% of it. I kind of lost my train of thought, but you get what I'm saying, right? Is that you're going to just hear all the bad stuff. You're never going to hear the story of what actually got him there. Something that I'm very interested in, I don't know if any of you guys are, is what does radicalize people? I'm super interested in why people get these extreme views, or why people, because something that I think is like really rampant in our culture right now, in our communities, is that you're either left or you're right. There's basically no middle ground right now. And that's why I cannot stand the fucking right now, because it's a bunch of cucked pussies like this guy, right? They will be right no matter what. Right is right no matter what. When you look at a bunch of stuff that the Conservative Party is doing and you're like, what the fuck happened? And the thing that really got me on that was after the Charlie Kirk situation. When they were releasing a list of all the people from social media that they talk shit on Charlie Kirk's name after his death, and they were calling for them to get fired. Like, what a leftist thing for you to do. That is the most pussy shit I've ever seen the right do, at least in the past 4 years. Calling for people, like, what happened to the freedom of expression of ideas and freedom of speech? What happened to that? They've just become so pussy. The right is actually the left with right-leaning ideas. You only want the ideas expressed when they are your ideas.
First of all, I think this is like ridiculous and kind of sloppy thinking at a certain point. Just to be clear again, there's no evidence that Tucker was trying to mainstream Nick Fuentes. What happened here is Nick Fuentes became mainstream. Like, that's just the
Nick Fuentes. Nick freaking Fuentes became mainstream. And it happened a long fucking time ago, dude. You guys just didn't pay attention. These guys didn't pay attention. Not you guys watching it. These guys did not pay attention. Instead of acknowledging the fact he was mainstream and trying to dismantle his ideas, whether you believe them to be good or bad, he became mainstream. And instead, they just kept trying to push the silence.
reality, and anybody can look at this like this is just looking at numbers. It's not like an opinion. He's about as big as anybody in this world right now, up there with them. And in terms of, no, you cannot deduce. Look, I had a socialist, Ben Burgess, on my podcast years ago, because he wrote this book, and it was called something like Canceling Comedians While the World Burns. And the book was about how there's all these left-wingers who were caught up in cancel culture at the time, canceling Louis C.K. and all these guys. Look, we still don't have universal health care or universal, all this stuff. And I just interviewed him about the book because I thought.
Yeah, do you guys ever notice that? And I actually believe this to be true on both sides, is that, the parties win based on their ideas and what they believe to be important at the time. But that's always just the idea. Is that whatever is important at the time is important at the time. So if I have to say that I'm anti-war in order to win the election or the debate, because that's what's popular right then and there, then I'm going to say that I'm anti-war. But then in the moment, like during presidency or during, whatever, during the person's actual time in office or, the public opinion, things of that nature, if racism is what's important in that time, then we're going to focus on this. We're going to stop doing what we said we're going to do and the thing that we were actively working on, because this is what's important in the public square and the public opinion. So we are now going to focus on this. Nobody ever fucking gets anything done. Like, it's just more and more apparent to me, right? And I've never really believed in this whole political scheme that we have going on. But it's just more and more apparent that nothing actually ever fucking happens because both sides are too busy virtue signaling to the other side to figure it out.
And I didn't argue with him, but you can't deduce from that I believe in socialism. And in fact, what Tucker did on the show was make the point against Jew hatred and make the point against racial collectivism at all, and saying flat out that is just unchristian and that Christians must judge people as individuals, and that it's not a cuck move to say it's not the Jews, that you have to talk out specific. The truth is, Nick didn't really give him pushback on that. Now, you could say that is Nick trying to moderate his views or something like that, but I don't exactly know why that's a bad thing. I think I'd probably rather people say, yeah, it's not all the Jews. There are different specific people. But to the bigger point here, I think look, when you say, oh, there's these people with conspiracy theories, they're not connecting.
Yeah, what I think that is interesting as of recently as well, on the right, is that there is a big fucking victimhood culture, a victim mentality. Now, everything is the Jews. Everything is the fucking Jews, right? Which, do they control like a lot of stuff, and do they have a lot of central banking? Like, are they in charge of central banks, and are they in charge of media and all these different things? Sure. Let's just run with that argument. But the right, and what's pushing me away from the right, and I'm definitely not going left, but what's pushing me away from the right more and more is the fact that when I first actually accepted, wow, I think I have more right-leaning views. I think that I'm actually more conservative than I am liberal. The thing that attracted me was the personal accountability part, and that they didn't want to be victims, and they kept calling the leftist pussies and things of that nature, right? Because they would rely on food stamps and all these different things. The culture that I grew up in, right? My mom was fucking broke. She was broke, and she could have taken food stamps. We could have gotten all of the public help, right? But instead of doing that, she had too much pride, and she worked literally 3 jobs. She literally worked 3 jobs because my mom was never a victim, and she raised me the same exact way, to work your way into success. And so that's what really kind of turned the wheel for me about the right, was I started to realize, oh, even though my mom kind of identified as liberal at the time, she actually had a lot of right-leaning ideas and morals and ethics. She wouldn't take state help because, blah, blah, blah. I digress. And so the personal accountability part is the part that really drove me in. But now it seems that everything is everyone else's fault. White men are so disenfranchised now, and women, like you see this red pill movement, right? Which I'll be doing reactions on that too. But this red pill, like women aren't traditional women anymore. And we are, we should sit at home. And the only thing that we should think about, like we believe in the traditional family system, but the only thing we should think about is making money and grinding because women need to catch up and all this fuckery, this dumb shit. Like the right has become so pussy that is the thing that's like driving me out. Everything is everyone else's fault. It's victimhood culture.
Again, yes, that's true. It's also prevalent everywhere. Every single day, Mark Levin gets on Twitter and tweets Tucker Carlson. That's what he calls him every single day. What is that other than a ridiculous conspiracy? There's never been a shred of evidence. Laura Loomer, the most disingenuous person on the internet, once produced a document that said that a group in Qatar was trying to facilitate an interview with Tucker Carlson and a Qatari leader. There's no evidence that Tucker Carlson, the man in his 50s with tons of money, started going on the payroll of Qatar. This stuff is everywhere. And, I would just say that when you say, hey, there are certain views, like I find Alex Jones' view on Sandy Hook disgusting. I find Nick Fuentes' views on race disgusting or something like that. Okay, look, if I'm being completely honest, I find your views on Gaza disgusting. But whatever, man, let's still sit down and talk about it, because what else are we going to do? I mean, how many options do we really have here? We can fight, we can go to war, or we can try to argue this like civilized men and see who's more persuaded by our case. And for all you guys, say whatever you will about Nick Fuentes. I've known him over the years. I don't know him super well, but I do know him. And full disclosure, I got to admit, I kind of like him. I disagree with him on a lot of things.
He's a likable guy. When you listen to him, he's a likable guy. He just has ideas that you may or may not agree with, but we all have ideas that other people might or might not agree with. Shit, I have ideas that I don't even agree with.
He disagrees with me on a lot of things. One thing I cannot say about him, he is willing to debate. So when you sit here, Seth, and you're like, Tucker should have handled him like this, Tucker should have screamed bigot at him the whole time, why don't you give that a shot? I bet he'd do it.
Right, but the problem is that now these people have become way too pussy. And now both parties are participating in the cancel culture. Well, I don't like Nick Fuentes' ideas because it doesn't represent the right. Well, fucking prove that it doesn't represent the right. Prove it. Be the person that proves it, that the right-leaning people don't agree with Nick Fuentes. I don't care if you agree with him or not, but if you have an opinion, you have an idea against the guy or with the guy, prove it. Show people. Because again, too, the thing that's really frustrating is that the people on the right will just, instead of having the conversation with the guy, have the conversation. If you, as a right-leaning person, don't want Nick Fuentes to represent the right, don't let him represent the right. No one having a conversation with him is going, if no one has a conversation with him, then the people who get to see his content, the people who see his clips, they're going to assume that the people on the right are for it or just okay with him espousing his ideas. But just because you disavow him publicly and you don't have the conversation with him, that doesn't do anything besides build curiosity. So if you have the conversations like Tucker did, and you're actually giving him a platform to speak, now people can dissect whether or not the ideas are rooted in something that's valuable or not valuable. It's basic fucking philosophy, dude. You talk about the shit, you talk about the shit to see if it's worth the shit. Kenneth DeLapp, what's happening, dude? How are you? Glad to see you here, dude.
Give it a shot. See how that goes. See who can persuade more people. Well, I actually don't think that's a very effective way of dealing with anyone's idea.
Also, the way that Nick Fuentes communicates, okay, this is kind of dangerous, right? The way that he communicates is so good. It's so practiced. It's so polished. There's not a lot of people with that kind of talent. I don't know. He might persuade a lot more people than you would like, be it good or bad.
Yes.
All right. Well, a couple of things there. First, Nick is becoming more mainstream, and the question is whether or not that's a good thing. You know, I would argue that it's a bad thing that Nick is becoming more mainstream, and that any roadblocks you can put in his path. I think gatekeeping is a good thing. I think it's what keeps movements healthy. It's you keep the rot out, you keep the bad ideas at bay. You know, and I think that Tucker has a moral responsibility to do that in the position that he's in. So I would disagree with you that, you know, it's just.
Yes, a moral responsibility because I decided that it's a moral responsibility. What a fucking idiot, dude.
Fine that Nick is becoming. You may like Nick Fuentes. I think his ideas are absolutely terrible. I don't want to see them adopted, and I certainly don't believe that he's being honest when he tries to moderate and present himself as more reasonable than he is. I think that's a ploy. I think it's a game that he's playing, and to act like that's a good thing. No, it's actually a really bad thing that we're letting him get away with that instead of challenging that. You have to actually hold his feet to the fire and say,
hold on.
These are the things that you've actually said. Do you stand by them or not? Tucker wasn't willing to do that, so I think that's very problematic.
Okay. What an idiot. I mean, this is pretty simple, right? Let's back it up.
Him get away with that instead of challenging that. You have to be more reasonable that he is. I think that's a ploy. I think it's a game that he's playing, and to act like that's a good thing. No, it's actually a really bad thing that we're letting him get away with that instead of challenging that. You have to actually hold his feet to the fire and say, these are the things that you've actually said. Do you stand by them or not? Tucker wasn't willing to do that, so I think that's very problematic.
Okay, so then how do you do that in the first place, right? You don't do that by silencing the person. Number one, the way that you challenge ideas and that you hold somebody's feet to the fire is you have the conversation. I mean, I feel like I sound like a fucking broken record right now, but the way that this guy is talking is just like silence him, but also make sure that you hold his feet to the fire, but don't give him a platform, but make sure that you can tell people that his ideas are bad, which, by the way, who is the arbiter of like what ideas are good or bad? My opinion would be that the public opinion at large is what determines that, right? And I think something that, in my opinion, is not super great about what's happening with Nick Fuentes is there's more and more people that are getting on board with the rhetoric that Nick has or that Nick espouses, right? The rhetoric. I'm not a fan of the rhetoric. I'm actually not a fan of the rhetoric on the right, period, right now. A lot of it is very white-centric and very like nationalist, which I don't believe is like such a bad idea, but maybe not nationalist is not the word that I'm looking for. But it's very like something here. This is what it is. Nick Fuentes is not a fan of race mixing, and he believes that. And he says this on a lot of podcasts. He believes that every race should kind of keep to themselves and do their own thing. You can have your opinions on that, conserving race. I'm not like hugely against that. But what I am against is the rhetoric that comes from that. So what people do is they don't take that at base level, surface level, what he's actually saying, which is like, hey, if you want to conserve the white race, the black race, the Mexican race, then you should be having babies with your race, with your ethnicity, so that your lineage keeps going. No. Instead, what people do is they say, yeah, fucking black and white people should never get in relationships. That is just whatever. And you guys have probably all heard the recorded phone call from Nick Fuentes saying, you know, that it's degenerate and stuff like that. And you can believe what you believe. I don't really think that, you know, I don't really care what you believe in terms of that. But what people do is they take it so far, right, that you have guys like, I forget what this guy's name is on Instagram, but he posted a video of him saying like, I just deported 15 families by calling ICE on my own. Then you get people like that, right, from the ideas because what they get are the clips of Nick Fuentes instead of the actual ideas. You need to actually allow the person into the marketplace of ideas in order to hold their feet to the fire, in order to have the discussion and the debate. And as Dave Smith said, Nick Fuentes is willing to do that. He has called to be on Candace, then he was on Candace. He had called to be on Tucker, then he was on Tucker. He had called to be on PBD, then he was on PBD. Now where he does, and other leftist shows.
Okay, but again, so I'm not exactly clear, because before you said he should be having this conversation. Now you're saying he has an obligation to gatekeep and he shouldn't be having this conversation. I mean, look, the way I look at it
No,
is
the
like
gatekeeping
this.
is done with the conversation. The conversation is the gatekeeping.
Right.
The conversation is saying,
Okay,
look,
but
these
you know
your
what? You
ideas are
don't
bad.
but look, yeah, but I think your ideas are bad. So
Can we just take a moment to acknowledge Dave Smith for that? Can we just take a moment to acknowledge Dave Smith? I'm going to overuse the hell out of these soundbite things, by the way. I think his ideas are bad too. Who gets to determine what are good or bad ideas? Like we were just talking about.
you don't get to dictate how everybody else has conversations. Sorry, you don't have that authority over other people. So you don't get to do it.
Yeah,
but
I'm not claiming to have the authority to dictate
right, but
what
you can,
I'm not
exactly.
saying Tucker
Right.
had
So then
no
Tucker can have
obligation. Tucker has no obligation to do anything that I want him to do. I'm saying I believe there's a way things should be. I'm saying it shouldn't be the case that Nick should be mainstreamed. If I was in Tucker's shoes, I would have held his feet to the fire. I'm asking the question, why didn't he?
But Seth Dillon, why shouldn't it be the case? Why should it not be that way? He's not saying anything. Understand that if your arguments with people are, it just shouldn't be the case. You're not saying anything. You literally haven't said anything. It shouldn't be that way. Okay. I don't think your way should be that way. What do we do from here? What?
I would like to know why he didn't. I think that I think that we all have a moral obligation to push back on bad ideas. Now, you think my ideas are bad, so yeah, you're going to want to challenge them. Well, I think that it would have been a responsible thing and a good thing for the conservative movement if someone as prominent as Tucker, with as large of audience as he has, if he was standing in the way of Nick Fuentes becoming more mainstream. I think that would be a good thing for everybody. And I'm disappointed that it didn't come.
Let me just.
So he's just saying like different things here, right? Like just objectively, he's going against what he'll say 1 minute that the conversation is where you gatekeep, but then Tucker should have been the person that stands between Nick becoming mainstream or not. The only thing that determines whether or not Nick goes mainstream from being on Tucker isn't the fact that he was on Tucker. It's the fact of whether or not people are going to agree with his ideas. There are a lot of people that have been given the opportunity to get into the public eye that don't make it because their ideas aren't good. Or like even rappers, right? Or like musicians, they get into the public eye and then nobody ever thinks about them again because the music or whatever, the art is just not good.
But he's free to do whatever he wants to do.
Okay, fine.
I'm free to criticize him for not handling the interview the way that I think it should have been responsibly handled. I think it was extremely irresponsible.
Okay. Certainly you're free to criticize them. You know, I would say that for all the people, by the way, who are so upset that Candace and Nick Fuentes have become so huge, like honestly, dude, talking to guys like you have no one but yourself to blame for that. It's all over the Israel issue, man. And the reason why they got so much support behind them is because they were against this destruction of Gaza. It was just like the most just horrible, inexcusable thing ever. But let me ask you a question, just because I think this is kind of interesting.
But that's not the only thing. That's not the only reason. Let's be clear. It's not the only reason that they got big was because they were against the destruction of Gaza. It's because when you actually talk to people, right? When you listen to, sorry, I'm reading Kenneth's comment at the same time. When you listen to what they're saying, not only do they actually bring up ideas that people agree with or the fact that they were against the destruction in Gaza, what people really like is that they dive deep and they have the deeper conversation. Where do these things come from? Why is their culture this way? Why is there destruction in Gaza? Not just, I don't agree with destruction, but they dissect why there is destruction there. Kenneth, what's the real concern? That people can't formulate their own opinions and just follow the mainstream talking heads? Sorry, Kenneth, I don't understand the question, I guess. My concern or their concern? My concern is that people like Seth Dillon and even to a degree, Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan's actually pretty good on this, but my concern is that people don't want to have conversations with people that they disagree with or people that they don't believe should be mainstreamed. Nick Fuentes is an interesting case study because he's already so popular. He's already so popular, and they think that silencing him is going to make him less popular or make less people agree with him, whatever the concern is, rather than having him in the public square so that the public opinion can make up their opinion on him. And my actual opinion on that is that they're so scared that people are going to agree with him. That they're actually going to be concerned with, or that they're actually concerned with the fact that Nick is very well read. The things that he says about certain people don't just come from Nick's opinion. It comes from him actually doing his due diligence and having the research to back it up. He has read so many books. It's insane. I mean, when you listen to the guy talk, yeah, their concern, I believe, is that they just don't want Nick Fuentes to be platformed whatsoever because they think that it's a net negative. For me, is that I like when people like the Black Lives Matter people are platformed, or like there was this woman who wanted reparations and she was in, I think it was Middle Ground, whatever that, I think that's the YouTube series thing. I like when people like her are platformed because it shows it's the opportunity to have people actually break down their own ideas and show you why it's not good. Right? Show you why they're not good. And I'm not going to get into the reparations thing right now, but that's just one opinion. But yeah, I think that is the concern, right? They don't want that people can't formulate their own opinions and just follow the mainstream talking heads. Yes, I think that is their concern. My genuine opinion, though, is that they are concerned that other people are going to agree because he's well read and he's a master communicator.
So you're saying you have a responsibility to push back against bad ideas. Just the other week, I know both you and your partner over at Babylon Bee, Joel, I believe is his name. You got very upset with. Yes. So you got very upset with me because I said, when I basically had a tweet where I said something like, look, it's good the ceasefire happened. Less people are dying. There are hostage swaps taking place. That's great. Let's hope, for the best. Something like that. Mm. And both of you guys got very upset at me for using the term hostage swaps. And Joel said, you're describing innocent Israelis being held he said, on the Gaza side, it's nothing but innocent people. On the Israeli side, it's all terrorists. Now, I pointed out that 1,700 of the people that Israel released were just people that they grabbed and were holding without charges, something Israel's been doing for many, many decades. He referred to all of them as terrorists with no shred of evidence. Like, that to me sounds pretty bigoted to just assume that every Palestinian is automatically a terrorist. Did you push back on that at all when your colleague, your partner said that?
Of course not. Of course not, because in the conservative party especially, right? You see this with the Democrats all the time. They're not willing to have friendly fire. Or they are willing to have friendly fire. The conservatives will not. Because they're pussy. And they're all fighting to be on the same team. To have the same ideas, to do the same things, right? The conservative party is full of... Okay, check this out. Do you guys remember COVID? COVID times was the most telling thing for me, for a lot of people, because check this out. There were so many, and I've used this frame so many times. There were so many tough guy conservatives that were like fake gun-toting tough guys when the BLM stuff happened, when the COVID lockdowns happened. We don't want COVID, da, 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 da. Like we're not going to be locked down forever, but they still stayed in fucking side. They went and got the COVID vax. Well, yeah, I just got it because, I didn't want to lose my job and all this. No. You don't get to be both. You don't get either. You were really a tough guy and you really are a patriot and you believe these ideas, or you don't. But it's virtue signaling. It's virtue signaling to the highest degree. And I actually think that conservatives are worse with virtue signaling for this idea, for this reason, right? And then there was the gun-toting, virtue signaling. We're so tough. If BLM comes to our neighborhoods, they're not going to like what happens. They're not going to shut the fuck up. You've never punched somebody in the face. You expect us to believe you're going to pull the trigger? What? And so it's friendly fire. Conservatives don't want to engage in friendly fire. They're too pussy. They're too pussy. The guys who were MAGA before won't disavow MAGA now and the things that Donald Trump is doing now because they are ideologues. Yes. Yep. The cope is just insane. And admittedly, I am not the person to talk about or to think about, oh man, did you guys even hear any of that? Man, damn it.
Insignificant. There's standards that are applied to Israel that aren't applied to anybody else in these things. I would distinguish between the hostages that were taken on October 7th and the...
I don't think that that's true. I don't think there are standards that are applied to Israel that there wouldn't be anywhere else. I think that just mass killing is wrong, period. Hard stop.
Prisoners that Israel is holding. We can have that's not really the topic of this conversation, but we disagree about what the bad ideas are. Though. No, it's not, because what we're talking about is that we all have our own view of what the bad ideas are. We all have the freedom to engage in a discussion about that. That's what the free marketplace of ideas is. It's where the good and the bad clash, right? Where we both voice our own opinion about what that is and try to hash that out and try to arrive at the truth. Those are healthy conversations. I'm not calling for an end to any of those conversations. My criticism of Tucker Carlson, for example, is a contribution to the discussion, not an attempt to end the discussion. And I don't appreciate it being characterized as censorship by everybody who's saying that I'm calling for censorship. That's the last thing I'm calling for.
No, I wasn't saying you're calling for censorship. I'm just making the point.
Okay, well, if Dave Smith doesn't want to say it, I'll say it. He called for censorship. He just did. I mean, rewind the video. He did, and then he didn't, and then he did again. It went back and forth twice. He did call for it. He doesn't want Tucker to mainstream him. So what else is censorship?
Sure, go ahead, Pierce. Sorry.
I was going to just say on this wider question of Israel, we've seen in the last couple of days a flare-up which has not ended the ceasefire, but it appears that Hamas, or they say it was a group they weren't in contact with when it happened, killed an IDF soldier, and Netanyahu responded with huge force, but has now stopped the bombing relatively quickly compared to what we've seen before. And the ceasefire remains intact. And you have the Qatari Prime Minister acting as a mediator as part of this process, saying that the fault lay initially with the Palestinian group, as he put it, who killed the IDF soldier. We're going to see these flare-ups, but do you believe that the overarching ceasefire can actually succeed here? And what does the future look like? Like most of you, I've been through the ringer with health scares affecting, not to mention, Piers Morgan Uncensored, and support our show. Your biology,
like I got little kids, so I don't know why this is the image I can't. But you know, like when a little kid has a loose tooth and like right before the tooth falls out, and it's just like it's hanging on by the tiniest little thread. Like it's basically all. I mean, that's where the ceasefire is right now. Like officially, they're saying it hasn't been broken, but oof, man, are we really, really close? Look, I wish I could be more optimistic about it.
Yeah. You know, I'm not going to get super into that portion of things because that's just, man, does it upset me. Man, does it upset me when people are dying. Just period, dude. I mean, it's crazy. Anyways, the whole point here, the whole thing that I really wanted to drive home and that I do want to drive home with people is that the marketplace of ideas should actually be the place, the town square, right? So social media, media in general should be the place where people are allowed and free to express their ideas. And without being able to actually express the ideas in full length and just this clip culture, we're never going to get a full spectrum of why or how somebody actually believes and what brought them there. And I think that's something that's really missed in the clip culture today. And I think that this type of stuff is coming back, long form content, is that we want to see how people get radicalized, or at least I do, because I think it's very important and integral to the actual story, right? If you want to know how or why somebody believes what they believe and whether or not they can be saved, basically, it's probably good to know what the backstory is. It's probably good to be able to discuss the idea at length rather than clip culture and just clip farming and hearing these people say these really otherwise nasty things and you make a judgment on them. And I'll be the first to admit, I do this, right? Like I definitely do judge people based on, clips that I've seen. Unless they're people that I like, right? I'm a biased human. I am a human. But oftentimes what I'll do is I'll actually look into it. Why did this person say this thing, or what did they say? And something that, Sam Hyde. Sorry, that's ADHD. Sam Hyde is the guy that I was talking about in the beginning of the stream. So the three conspiracy theorists are Alex Jones, Sam Hyde, four, David, whatever his name, David Icke. Look at this. This is how ADHD works. And then Nick Fuentes. Those are the four guys that, if you guys are interested in diving deeper on what's going on in the world in terms of conspiracy and doomsday and all this different stuff that I've paid attention to since I was 17 years old, those are the four people. I'll say it again. Alex Jones, Sam Hyde, David Icke, Nick Fuentes. Those are the four people. Now, whether you agree with those the people's ideas or not, I think that it is worth it to go back in time and understand why Alex Jones said the things about Sandy Hook, to understand why he said it. Okay. To understand why Nick Fuentes actually thinks the way that he thinks, his dealings with Ben Shapiro and the right. I think it's worth it if you actually want to know why these people think the way that they think. David Icke is a crazy one. that one will take you down some rabbit holes that maybe you won't ever come back from, or maybe that you shouldn't go down and explore. And then Sam Hyde, basically just a comedian who has some ideas about the world, good and bad. See, this is the thing though, is that I think that because of social media and because of media, like the news, media outlets and stuff, things of that nature, people have such a lack of nuance thinking that they can't be like if somebody says one bad thing automatically, or one bad thing that they don't agree with at least, right? Automatically they write them off as like a terrible person instead of actually inspecting their ideas as a whole. Like, oh, this person said this thing that I actually really agree with. It opened my mind, made me think about XYZ, but there's this thing that I don't agree with that they said. And that's kind of like what Dave Smith did a really good job at doing in this, and actually also having Fuentes on his podcast. Oh, man. And so I was talking about before, I think that the public square, right, that should be the arbiter of like what is a good and bad opinion. Like what do people at large agree with? and what don't they agree with. Because the politicians and the media and social media right now, dude, I mean, money culture is just so crazy, right? Even in the space that a lot of you guys are in, right? It's attention culture equals money, and that's going to formulate opinions and formulate the type of content that people make, because they realize that shock culture and all these different things, not having a nuanced take is more popular than having a nuanced take, right? I'm just not interested in that anymore. I never really was, to be honest with you. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I believe is going on, that they want us to pick sides like that. They want us to be against each other because it's more influence, it's more money, it's more power. Divide and conquer. That's always been the goal. It's always been the case. Oh, man. Should we watch anything else? What else should we watch? If anyone else is watching, what's another thing that we should watch? I have been really, really in to I don't want to say, I don't know how to say this, rather, like race relations kind of in the United States right now. I think that it's really ramping up and it's getting freaking insane. Like, it's getting really crazy. I don't know if people are really paying attention to it, but there's this whole, like, now there's this whole side of, yeah, we'll save it for a different one. We'll save it for a different one. Let's see. I've also been really into what's going on in fitness right now. Fitness, not CrossFit. CrossFit is fucking boring. I hold that opinion true to my heart. CrossFit is boring because no one will allow or acknowledge the use of PEDs. And I think that once we get there where people are acknowledging more the use of PEDs and like being open about it, that CrossFit will actually start to get way more interesting. Because what bodybuilding has going for it right now in the aesthetic culture is that you can make videos on like natty or not. And that's still so popular. And to be honest with you too, in the CrossFit space, there's not a lot of people that are actually like pimping a personality, right? Like Colton Mertens he's my favorite of all time for sure. Jason Hopper is leaning more into that, but then everybody else's identity is kind of more just like being an athlete, and especially like not actually that's their identity, but it's like online that is their identity. Like nobody actually talks about opinions that they have or anything, so it's like really boring. In the aesthetics world, like bodybuilding and things of that nature, like people are very into actual culture. Like they're talking politics, they're talking their opinions on God, Jesus, and all these different things. And that's just something that you don't see in CrossFit. People are more consumed with and more concerned with being athletes, which whatever. I mean, that's kind of what they have to do, right? Being an aesthetic bro doesn't require as much focus as that does. But again, it doesn't really leave, at least for me, it doesn't really leave room for interesting conversation, right? It's just like the same conversation all the time. Like who's better at this, who's shit at this, you know, stuff like that. I want to talk about CrossFit, but there's just not much to talk about for me because I'm not interested in that stuff. But yeah, I've been interested in right now Mike Israetel, who I used to be a really big fan of. Actually, it has his feet held to the fire, dude, like to the absolute fire. With his dissertation, his PhD dissertation. I still hold the opinion that what he has done at large has been a net positive for the fitness space, especially evidence-based lifting. I still hold the opinion that what he has done has been a net positive. But there's a lot of shit going on. There's a lot of shit going on there. And so I'll probably do a reaction to that. Tuesdays and Thursdays, here are the announcements. And then I think I'm off of here unless people are commenting, asking questions, interacting. Tuesdays and Thursdays are going to be my streaming days as of now. I might try to sneak in some shit here and there. I really struggled with what to do with this page. And I guess since it's the end of the video, I'll open up a little bit more about this. I struggled with like what content I wanted to create just in general. I had an epiphany not too long ago, probably like a month and a half ago. I was talking to my friend, Roderick, meme for time. And we're on the phone talking about like what, how the past year has gone and things of that nature. And Hiller actually became a big inspiration for me to do what I am about to do with this YouTube channel. So anyway, this past year, I really focused on building up my online coaching business, and thank God it went very well. It's going well. But what I realized is that I am just so passionate about creation and creating, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, having fun. Like, it's just like, it's just my thing, right? And the past 4 years, I really bought in to the hustle and grind culture. And that's great. There's so many good things to be said about the hustle culture and the grind culture. However, the thing that is not good is when the sole thing that you are focused on is creating income and money and not doing things that you're passionate about. And within those 4 years, I dropped hanging out with friends. I just put my head down and I did the work. And a lot of really, really good things happened from that. Not a lot of bad, actually. Almost like no bad. But what did happen was that I kind of got disconnected from my artistic side and my artistic view of the world and nuanced thinking, to be real. That I like recently, I've fallen more into doing the things that make me feel fulfilled and happy and have fun, like mountain biking and skateboarding, and we're snowboarding this year. We ordered a freaking conversion van, right? Like, I've been getting out in nature, running. Like, I've just been connecting, doing music again. Like, my guitar is always right next to my desk. It's always next to my desk in case I feel inspired or whatever. I have like, I don't know how to say it. What is it called? MIDI controller here. I have an interface. I have the podcast, all these different things, right? So I've really leaned into my interests, my loves, my passions again. And what it really made me realize is that like this pursuit of cash, money, cream, right? The pursuit of cream, cash was everything around me. Doesn't do anything for me, or I think for a lot of people, if while pursuing cream, you're not actually living a life that is aligned with your spirit or your soul or God's calling for you. And I truly believe that doing stuff like this and creating Instagram content, YouTube content, all these, and music and stuff is like where God wants me to be. And so I'm going to really lean into it and like really give it my best effort. And hopefully this actually does become the way that I support my family and the way that I do things. And so like, the hustle culture and the hard work and all the motivational stuff is still so ingrained in me because it always has been since I was young. But I think that if I can put that into this more, right, that good things will happen because it's more aligned with my spirit, my soul, and what I want to be doing. That this is the alignment right here. The coaching and all that stuff, I've been doing it for years and I love it. But this is what I truly want to be doing, is creating. And so, yeah. It's what I'm going to be leaning into. It's what my focus is going to be. Aside from competing in long endurance sport, like I have 200-mile mountain bike races that I'm getting ready for. I am prepping to do 1 to 2 ultra marathons this year, between 50 and 100 miles. and I'm still doing CrossFit, things of that nature. But yeah, I'm going to lean into what I feel like my soul's purpose is on this earth, which is creating and helping people through creation. And you're still going to get the motivational content and the stuff that I began with in the beginning, right? But it's just going to be more directed and focused into here, because something that I who knows if anybody is actually going to be watching this and paying attention to this, but I feel like some people can relate. Something that I did realize was that I was getting paralysis by analysis of trying to figure out what kind of content should I put where. Should I make a new social media page? Should I make a new YouTube page? Should I make a new Instagram page? All these different things, because what is branding? Da, 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 da. But what I realized, and this is something that like Andrew Hiller does so good, and I don't consume any CrossFit content whatsoever anymore, but from time to time, I do watch Andrew Hiller. And something that he does so good is he just doesn't care. I feel like it sounds so weird to say that, but like he just doesn't care. And so he puts everything in one place. And I'm like, whoa, you guys, I don't know why this blew my mind so much. But Hiller does stuff like this. Hiller does like documentary style stuff, which by the way, he's so underrated. He's very good. I'm not trying to glaze him, but like when I like watch his stuff, I'm like, dude, this is fucking fantastic. Like, and because I'm on the editing side, I'm on the creation side, I'm on the concept side, I think about it and it's like almost genius, right? Like it's like almost like there's this guy named Sneeko. You guys may or may not have heard of him. I've been watching him for years. He got deleted off of YouTube for, I think, 3-4 years. But he moved to X and all these different things. But Sneeko has this way of viewing the world that is just like insane. And he's able to put it into an art form. And Hiller reminds me of Sneeko in the way that he like does things. And so anyway, the inspiration came truly from Sneeko and from Andrew Hiller, where it's like, okay, it doesn't matter what I create, just post it all on one spot. Just post it all on one spot, because the thing that Hiller does is he just literally creates what it seems like he just does what he wants to do and then puts it on his channel. And he doesn't really care if it's the thing that's like going to blow up or not. He just wants to do it. So he does it. And then people respond, because I think, and now I'm going onto a tangent, with the emerging of AI and the AI videos from like Sora and all these different places, is that what people are really going to be craving is authenticity, authentic art, authentic thought, authentic emotion, like all these different things, right? That it's not going to matter anymore if you are niche down. What's going to matter is how you make people feel, and if they can relate to the content, or if they like the content. And for so long, I got paralysis by analysis because I was just thinking about like, can I even put this on this page? Does this go brand, blah, blah, blah. Who gives a fuck, right? Who cares? And that's also part of being human, right? Is that you have feelings, you express them, and you put them out there. Not every day you're going to be hyper motivated, hyper masculine, hyper all these things that I've been talking about for years. And that's okay. Just post it. Show the broad spectrum of what the human experience actually is. And yeah, so I don't know if that was too tangenty for you guys, but that is the idea for this page now, inspired by Hiller and Sneeko. Whatever the fuck I feel like posting, and the thing that I'm feeling in the moment is exactly the fucking shit that I'm going to post, because I have an array of interests and ideas, and I want to fully put them out there and express them. And because those two have kind of paved the way in terms of brain mapping for me, I'm going to do it. Regardless of if people fuck with it or not. If I fuck with it, I'm posting that shit. I don't even care. Yes, I started cursing again. All right, guys. I appreciate you sitting here and watching. Thanks so much for joining me. Don't be surprised if I come back on today. Like I said, I'm really going to pour myself into this stuff. Right now, I need to go walk my dog, number one, because he's crying. And you guys saw him on the stream, Teddy Bear, Teddy the dog, the miniature golden doodle, who's probably not going to be mini. I got to go walk him. I got to go hit a mountain bike, a training ride. I got to go do some hypertrophy stuff. Heather and I have started a side peptide thing because she's a PA, so we can get pharmaceutical grade peptides. If you guys have any questions on that, feel free to hit me up on Instagram. We can help you out with your peptide protocol. We can ship you peptides. So I got to do some stuff for that. But then it's likely that I will be back today. Like I said, I want to pour my heart and soul into this. There's a lot of content out there that I want to react to and I want to live stream about. So again, thanks so much for watching. You guys, we will see you later on. Peace out. Goodbye. Leave some comments about what you want to see below. Like the video. It really helps. Yeah, just let me know what you guys want to see. I'm also... Never mind. Fuck it. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.